Varuschka Nagesar. Great conversation with Varuschka. Fascinating. From South Africa, became a lawyer, got a lot of very big corporate jobs. Accenture, Google, DHL. Liked them for a time. They weren't for her. We kind of walked through that a little bit. But now she helps. She sees all this need in the corporate world for executive coaching. And this is what she does. She really values her freedom. Being from South Africa, now she's in London. She's moved a lot, and she really values that time. And her approach to helping people, from what she's learned, is really interesting. I ask, who won't you work with? What did you learn at Google? Which is really interesting, by the way. Googler, the term Googler. I can't believe I never heard that term before. But employees and past employees are called Googlers. But what she learned there, and when she went to the others, and how she helps others now, art versus science, that whole debate. For someone who loves freedom so much, why would you, want to be a lawyer? Why would you want to learn the rules? She loves structure, but just didn't kind of like some of the way she kind of felt in some of these environments, in these corporate environments. It's a wonderful conversation with Varuschka. Really, really sharp, really strong message. It's just, I really enjoyed it. Great energy. Thanks so much for watching and listen. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz, and here's my 45-second introduction. After starting my business in the 90s, I started developing poor habits of eating in my diet because of working way too much. Before you know it, I found myself 340 pounds. The doctor told me if I don't lose the weight, I'm not going to see my daughter graduate. Took the next 7 months, lost 130 pounds. People think there's some secret. Ask me, how'd you lose that weight? Like there's some secret. There is no secret. How'd I lose the weight? Just one word: discipline. I've had other successes in life, and I attribute them all to discipline. Now, I'm not the king of discipline, but I believe that it can help all of us. Friends, colleagues convinced me to start a podcast. The podcast mission: how do we better ourselves and society? I talk to interesting people in health, fitness, sport, wellness, business, technology, science, art, and culture. And I eventually ask them how discipline plays a role in their life. Podcast vision: growth through learning from others. My goodness, Varuschka, thank you so much for your time. What got you into salsa dancing?
Well, I love dance. I love to move. So, I was thinking about one of these things, which obviously is the basis of your podcast, which is discipline, right? And what's my one discipline, if I thought about it practically? And it's movement. And I love music and I love to move. So, having done other forms of dance, salsa was just the next step because it's favorite types of music to move to.
It's an interesting kind of transition, just body movement to the movement that you've done in your life, from being an attorney in South Africa to big corporations like Google and, my goodness, DHL and Accenture. Has this been a theme in your life?
The dancing?
Just the movement.
The movement? Yes. I can honestly say that staying still for too long seems restrictive to me. And now looking back and the way you position the question, I think in all fairness, I've realized that it didn't seem as intentional at the time when the changes were happening, but I've realized that. And the funny thing is, I've been in London for the last 10 years, and it's probably the one place I've stayed the longest after, growing up at home in South Africa, schooling, and then going to uni. Once I went to uni, I started to move because I finished my first degree and then I went on to master's, and that was my first job. I also left home, and ever since then, I've just been moving from one place to the next. I think when I was younger as well, we moved around as a family, so I probably got used to that. Unknowingly, it's a pattern.
In this fast-paced MSP landscape, how do you stay ahead? Introducing MSPinfluencer.com, your ultimate hub for MSP news, insights, and community connection, powered by Forza Dash. More than 75,000 MSPs subscribe to our MSP Influencer Pulse weekly newsletter, staying informed and ahead of industry trends. Tune in to emerging podcasts from Joey Pinz and leading MSP voices, offering essential tips, powerful insights, and success stories. Explore our multi-authored blogs, crafted specifically for MSP leaders, delivering fresh perspectives and actionable strategies. Celebrate excellence with the industry-leading Forza-MSP Influencer Awards, recognizing innovation, leadership, and impact in the MSP community. Join thousands of MSP professionals who trust MSPinfluencer.com to grow their business and expand their networks. MSPinfluencer.com, where today's MSP leaders connect, collaborate, and conquer, all powered by the Forza platform, helping MSP vendors work effectively with MSPs and helping MSPs grow. And why London for this long? What does London give you that you need?
London is really an interesting place.
Yeah.
London itself, not England, but London as a city, because it's
Right.
so dynamic, it's so diverse. And as I mentioned, I was born and brought up in South Africa. So there's a lot of diversity there, and there's a lot of different types of people. And what I noticed when I was growing up in South Africa is people tend to box people, right? Whether it's by race or by culture or whatever it is. And I always noticed people doing that when I was growing up. And I didn't like that because I grew up post apartheid. So it didn't feel right to box myself. I'm getting to the point and going to answer your question why London? So when I came to London, because of the melting pot of diverse cultures, religions, people, and just people from every continent you can think of, I felt like this is great. I'm surrounded by such different people. And I stopped trying to box people. I just wanted to absorb and learn about all of these different people and cultures. And I could see people looking at me, and depending on who they were and what they saw, they would assume I was from different parts of the world. And I found that the funniest but most fascinating thing, because it comes down to we're all so different, but actually we're all very much the same. And I think that gave me the freedom to become who I needed to become as time has gone by. So London makes me feel like I belong without being in a box.
Yeah, it's a wonderful city. Yeah, I've haven't spent a lot of time there, but whenever I go there, I really, really enjoy it. I'm here in the States, and I don't know, we just do things so similarly. And then when you go over there, my father's Italian; he's from Italy, and just when you go to Europe, you see how things can be different, and they work just fine. It's amazing.
Yeah. In fact, I just returned from like 2.5 weeks of being in Italy,
Mm.
which was amazing.
Yes, yes, yes. Very different culture there, and even in the country itself, from north to south, very, very different.
Very different. And when
Yes.
you spend time there, then you start to understand why.
Mm. Mm.
And I think that's another reason why I moved around a lot is I love to immerse myself in a place. Visiting a place as a tourist is very different from that immersive experience of spending
Mm.
time with someone in their home or living in a city and sort of having a daily routine. You just learn so much more.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. And really soaking it in,
Yeah.
eating the food, trying to speak the language a little bit,
Yes.
and and just kind of talking and just people watch and having conversations. It's just it's amazing to me how different it could be. My father sent me over there as a child, and so I was with my cousins and my aunts and my uncles, and they would argue over who gets to feed me. It was that kind of thing, and it was just wonderful. And then I'd come back here to the States, and I'd say, "Wow, it's different. It's not better or worse. It's just different, but I like both."
True, true. Every culture has something to offer.
Yeah.
And I love the way they come together around food and
Mm.
how good the quality of it is. And it just makes for that much better of a interaction.
It certainly does. So why get into law in South Africa? You became a lawyer there, correct?
Hmm. Hmm.
Now, law
Yeah,
seems pretty restrictive. I mean, here's the law. This is how things work. This is
yeah,
pretty the rules of the environment to be a citizen. What attracted you to that?
yeah. I think I have a bit of a contrasting personality in the sense that I want freedom of my movement and the things that I do, but I also really like that there's a structure and it's organized and there's rules that I could use to help others. And so growing up, when I was deciding what to study, I considered the law to be something that I could use because I didn't like seeing people being wronged. I didn't like seeing
Hmm.
unfairness
Hmm.
and seeing people feel helpless that they didn't know what to do or how to solve their problem. And I thought, oh, well, I could use the law to be able to help people and gain that sense of what I call fairness. And I thought the law was the right thing to do and use. Although I did know that being in a law firm was something I didn't really want to do for very long.
Hmm.
So that would explain why I didn't spend a long time practicing the law in your typical sort of pathway, which is being in a law firm. I did
Hmm.
spend some time being a law clerk at the South African Constitutional Court and the Supreme Court of Appeal, and that appealed to me a lot. But I knew that I couldn't be a judge having just come out of law school, that I needed to learn about life and I just needed to understand how the world works. And business is a large part of that, which
Hmm.
is how I went from law firm to business.
Hmm. Yeah, because knowing the law, knowing the rules, but then I mean, here in the states, you've got to. I think it's like 2,000 or something billable hours. You've got to book a year, and those lawyers work hard. They're in there late, and they're just,
Yeah.
there's it's not easy at all. And plus, here in the states, you've got to pay off all those school loans and everything, and it's not as glamorous as people put it up to be.
It's not. It is definitely not glamorous. It's a lot of hard work. And I think that it can be very rewarding. But I also find, having looked at it in practice and knowing why I didn't want to stay in practice, is because of those very restrictive, like the billable hours, like you say.
Right.
Leave aside the law being having its own restrictions and working the way it does. It was the environment and the people, and that's something I knew about
Mm.
and thought to myself, well, that's not going to suit who I am and what I want to do with it, which is why I knew, staying in a law firm and trying to make partner was not my desired way of
Mm.
doing things, because it became more like a business rather than, feeling like I was helping people. So deep down you always know that you have some purpose. Well, not everyone knows it in the beginning, but if you have that sense and that feeling from a young age, it's probably helpful, but you don't know how to do that. And I strongly believe that the law was going to be the way that I would help people and serve people. And little did I know where that was going to take me.
Hmm. Hmm. Tell me the lessons that you learned from Google.
Google is a very interesting place to work for. And I think, having now been able to contrast it with the various environments that I worked in, the positive things that I liked about Google is that they created this concept and culture of psychological safety.
Hmm.
And it was the first environment where a company openly did that, encouraged it within week one of orientation, and I saw it work. It was about making sure that people felt safe enough to challenge anything that they wanted, but with respect, provided that they followed the core values, one of which was everything is done with good intention. And so if I challenged someone who's in a leadership position or even a colleague, you do it with respect and good intention,
Hmm.
you can have a really constructive conversation. Now, human beings are human beings, so it's not perfect. But what I also liked about that environment and cultivating that was, it wasn't just about me feeling safe for me, is if I saw it for someone else, we were encouraged to say something. You could say something anonymously, or you could say it, actively to a line manager or whoever you wanted. But the point was, we would keep ourselves in check. It wasn't about the manager, it wasn't about the CEO or just someone who's higher up doing it. It was about all of us doing it. And when you work in an environment like that, it just creates a better foundation for communicating more openly and clearly and being yourself, but also they welcomed the fact that they hired people who came from all sorts of diverse backgrounds. And so, whatever your experience is,
Hmm.
whatever wonderful or crazy thing you've done in your life, like some people started businesses and got rid of them or kept them and came to Google, or people were authors and did all sorts of amazing things. And they wanted you to bring that part of you into your team, into the organization. So whatever you had to offer as an individual was valued. It wasn't just because, oh, that person's a lawyer or that person's an engineer. You
Hmm.
weren't just your title, you weren't just your job, because we're made up of multiple parts. Like if I was salsa dancing back then, or actually, I taught Zumba in Google's gym. And
Wow.
that's because a colleague encouraged me. I said, oh, I've been doing Zumba classes for 10 years, and I just got the instructor qualification as part of a hobby. And she's like, you should teach at the gym. I was like, okay.
Hmm.
Now, one would not normally think that that would be something that's welcomed or encouraged, because you think, oh, she's a lawyer, she comes from that background, she's probably very strict and doesn't do all of that stuff. But actually, you get to bring all the parts of yourself into that organization, into
Wow.
that team. It's welcomed and encouraged. And I really love that, because I think that was also a stepping stone for my inspiration for doing other things in my life.
Hmm.
And I've seen it with other Googlers too. Ex-Googlers, current Googlers. It's really interesting.
I never heard that term, Googlers. That makes sense.
Yeah, spoken like a true Googler.
Yeah. So that's the greatest lessons you learned. Why did you leave? What didn't you like about it?
Oh, sorry, I lost you there for a bit. I didn't get the question.
That was the great thing about being a Googler. Why did you leave? What didn't you like about it?
Why I left Google. Well, there were two reasons. One of which is because I got headhunted for another role, which was
Ah,
too good to pass up. So it wasn't. I was dissatisfied or unhappy with, which normal people would say and then leave. But one of the things that Google does do that requires getting used to is it's a constantly changing environment.
hmm,
And human beings are not good with change
hmm.
in general. I like change, as you know, because I've moved around a lot.
Yeah, me too.
But when it's changing every 6 months, or it's too quick for certain environments, then you got to take a step back and decide, okay, how do I do this? How do I manage it? So it was a constantly changing environment, and it's good for engineering and innovation. But sometimes, from a legal perspective and just a support function perspective, it can get quite frustrating when you have too many changes. So
Interesting.
it's not even a negative, it's just something that I thought, okay, well, if it's constantly changing, and if I want to map out a certain direction, I've got to be able to shift and pivot constantly. And so when I got an offer that was too good to say no to, I thought, well, instead of waiting in an ever changing environment to get there, it's a faster route to go that way, which is why I left Google.
When you say things change, I don't like policies change. Like, give me an example of something change.
Yeah, sure. Sometimes it's just a systems change. Sometimes managers change. They're like, oh, we've decided to restructure this division or this unit.
Oh, I
And so
see.
we're moving people around, and you have a new manager now. So you've been with someone for 6 months, and then you got to have a new manager. So you have to establish a new relationship. And corporates have the whole performance review function, in which case you need that person to support you. So if you're constantly changing managers, you're constantly reestablishing
Hmm.
relationships. Yeah, some things work, and some things are a little more challenging with constant change.
Very interesting. But as far
Mm.
as policies, like a number of vacation days or like those are
Oh,
hard fast.
yeah, those are great. That's one thing Google's known for. It's got some great perks, and those
I
things
see.
don't change negatively; they
I
change
see.
positively.
They change it
Yeah,
positively, yeah, and they're known to daycare and dry cleaning and, these kinds of things, right? This is, so, I mean, they
well,
really that's good.
yeah, you name it. Depending on the country and the division you're in, yeah, they do that well. They
Mm.
do that. Yeah.
So you leave Google and you go the big job you couldn't turn around turn down was at DHL?
Correct. Yes, that was DHL. So I became, the title was Vice President of Contract Risk Management for Europe, Middle East, and Africa. That was
Hmm.
a big title. That was a big title.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. But it was an interesting experience and probably the turning point of deciding what I want to do next. Because
Mm.
sometimes you get to a certain point and you realize, wow, this is all perfect on paper, but is this what I want? So
And you discovered that it wasn't?
and I discovered that it wasn't. Exactly. I know. And it's really hard for people to digest when they look at that and, they go, but why would someone not do that? But and this is where all the coaching comes in and probably the work one does on themselves over time is that when you realize something doesn't sit right with you, you're not feeling as fulfilled or there's some
Mm.
kind of misalignment, you're questioning how you're spending your time. And I think I had felt that way for a while, and I tried to supplement it by studying further, which I've done from time to time, which I enjoy because I like learning. And I did volunteer work and just continued to sort of coach friends and family and colleagues. But there comes a time where, that little whisper gets a lot louder, and it's like, yeah, something doesn't feel quite right.
Wow. How
Yeah.
long were you there?
2 years.
And what lessons did you learn?
Lessons for myself or in general?
Both.
I think lessons for myself was having done the work, like I said, when one does the self-awareness and more of the self-development work, I had realized I was becoming someone else,
Hmm.
and that the
Really?
corporate world had given me what I wanted to learn. And that's why I was so driven and went from one place to the next. And it was time to move on. And I had waited too long. That was the thing I learned about myself. And I learned that when an environment is not the right fit, and if the circumstances just aren't what you need them to be, then you can't be the leader you want to be. And sometimes it takes more courage to recognize that and walk away than it is to stay and just put up with it and probably in the process betray yourself. So,
Hmm.
yeah. And
Were you
sometimes,
physically still in South Africa?
no, here in London,
Oh, that was in London. I see. And Google, where was Google?
also in London. So
I see.
yeah, I moved from Accenture South Africa to Accenture UK, then to Google, then
I
to
see.
DHL.
I see.
So three
I see.
moves in 10
Hmm.
years. Yeah.
Wow. And so all of that, you leave and you decide to go into coaching. You don't want to be in the corporate environment anymore?
Not as a full-time employee. I want to work
Ah.
with corporates, but I want to help them from the outside in.
What did you realize through all that experience that what corporations needed?
I think working with a lot of individuals at all sorts of different levels in, juniors, senior management, executives, C-suites, and being one of them at any given point in time myself, is that people in general, when you work for an employer, at some point in that duration or in that journey, we feel like we have to give power away, or we almost feel like we don't have the power to question something or to put an idea forward or to even ask for something that you really, really want. It might not be practical. As an example, whilst I was working for Google, I wanted to go and spend 6 to 8 weeks in Australia because during the pandemic, I had a best friend who had a baby and I couldn't visit her at the time. So I thought, oh, I'll go over to Australia. Maybe I could work from there and it would be great.
Nice.
So I asked. And whilst they couldn't find me a position so that I could work from there, they're like, okay, you can take the 6 to 8 weeks off. We'll figure it out. It took me a while,
Uh,
but they let me do it. And some people would have said, well, why would an employer do that?
mhm,
And that's not a reasonable ask. I'd only been working with them for a year before I asked for that. And so it didn't seem like a reasonable ask. But at the end of the day, you sort of learn that if you believe in yourself and if you believe that what you're asking for is justifiable and you ask for it with respect, you come from a place of power. And so whatever happens as a result, depending on how they answer you and how they deal with it, it it comes from a better place and space for you to deal with what happens next. And what
hmm,
I mean by that, and to answer your question about what I learned, is that if people had more self empowerment, they would be able to maneuver through their lives, their jobs, or whatever area in their life in a far better way and manner than they do right now. And
hmm,
I mean this as a general comment. And one of my observations when I compare like a bad leader with a good leader, for lack of a better word, is people who are in a leadership position or position of power and influence, when they sort of impose their power on others, suppress or make people feel bad, coming from an ego perspective only to make themselves feel good. What I've learned over a long period of time is that if they were coming from a place of self power, if they weren't getting, whatever crap that was coming down the line on them and they weren't taking out on someone else, they could be a better leader because
hmm.
they'd feel stronger in themselves. And so they wouldn't have to put someone else down in order to make themselves feel better. And I think that works in any part of life, in any situation. When you come from a place of strength, you really don't need to take away from someone else for you to feel better or for you
Mm.
to even just do better or be kinder, if that makes sense. So I've seen it a lot. And I think I recognize that because even from a younger age, I would look at that and I would think, that's so unfair. Why is that person
Mm.
treating that other person with so much unkindness or just bullying them? It's
Mm.
not fair. And everyone deals with it differently. And the people who didn't stand up for themselves are the ones I felt for or felt that they couldn't. But actually, you can and you will if you come from a place of self empowerment.
Varuschka, what's the difference between a leader and a manager?
Ah, a manager is someone who tells you how to do the tasks, will sort of work with what to do and how to do it. If I had to do it in a very sort of simplistic way. And a leader is someone who will allow you to be, who will guide you, and even if you're going wrong, will give you the room to fail and learn
Mm.
and do better. So it's really in without going into the technical definitions, it's about the person who actually gives you the freedom to be who you are and respect that you have the expertise to do what you need to do and room for growth and learning.
Mm.
Managers look at productivity and tasks. Leaders look at people and development and progress.
Because I've had managers who really thought they were leaders and they weren't. It's a tough discussion. Have you ever had to talk to somebody about that? I mean, there are some very good leaders. I mean, it's just there's like a difference, like you said. One looks at right now and one looks ahead, essentially.
Yeah, yeah. But it's also the way in which they carry themselves
Mm.
and it's the vision, right? Leaders are, like you said, they're looking at the future, but they're also looking at this bigger picture and they're not looking at telling you how to do things. They're not looking at sort of the micromanaging things. They're
Mm.
giving room for the growth. They're giving room for the development, for the improvement. Because if we're all hiring professionals, if we're hiring the right people with the right expertise and experience, and even if we need to fill skills gaps, people can learn things. But you can't tell them how to be themselves. If you give them room to be themselves, you inspire and motivate them to get the results that you want. You don't force them and give them a to-do list to get them where you want, because in that way you might even get more out of people, and the business or the whatever it is that we're doing might turn out to be far better than we could have possibly imagined, because you bring in so much of experience and knowledge and different perspectives.
Hmm.
Leaders don't know everything, right? And often leaders are in a position where they need to have big picture thinking, and they need to inspire and motivate rather than do.
Hmm.
So they have to leave the doing and the action to other people to get stuff done. But people need direction, they need vision, and they need someone to take them there and remind them.
Hey, Joey Pinz here. Want to take your podcast experience to the next level? I'm excited to invite you to become a YouTube member. It's the absolute best way to support the channel and enhance your connection. Join our amazing community and unlock the incredible perks, custom loyalty badges, exclusive emojis, and priority comment replies. Your voice will always stand out. Be the first to watch new videos with early access, receive special membership shoutouts, and get exclusive behind the scenes photos and updates. Dive into content available only to our members, special videos, deep dives, and insider perspectives. Engage directly with me. Suggest podcast topics you want to hear, and even get personalized video shoutouts. Hit the join button right now and become part of something special. Let's build this amazing community together. I can't wait to welcome you as a new member. Join the Joey Pinz family today. And by the way, we need both, right? We need managers
Yeah,
and we need leaders.
absolutely.
Yeah, they're essential. They're
Absolutely.
both essential.
Yeah. And there's no evil in one or
Right.
the other,
One's not
but
good
they
or
are
bad.
definitely,
Yeah.
yeah,
But they are
but they
different. Yeah.
definitely two different things.
Right.
And that's why I think sometimes uh, when I look at organizations and when they have their whole process of how to bring people up, and it's sort of linear sometimes. It says, oh, so you've been doing this for so long. If you want to move up and you want to earn more and do better, you must become a manager. You must become a senior manager. And what that means is managing people. And then they use the word manager. And once you start to bring other people into the picture, it's you have to have a sense of leadership too, and you got to
Mm,
fluctuate a little bit. Yes,
mm,
tasks need to be done and you do need to manage, but you also need to understand people. There's a kindness and an empathy that's needed to get the stuff done.
hmm,
And so sometimes we need to be very careful when we say people need to do this or need to be there, need to do that, because not everyone's skilled at that. Not everyone can become a leader, and not everyone wants to be a manager either.
mm.
So, yeah, I've learned some interesting things about that. And I've spoken to managers who have the label of a leader that is far from it. And
Mm.
it's challenging because sometimes people's titles and the ego definitely gets in the
Yeah.
way,
Yeah.
and
Delicate.
it's yeah, yeah, and sometimes you have to be the one to manage that because you understand a little bit better and a little bit more.
Mm. In your coaching, Varushka, who will you not work with?
So because I am focusing on a niche, which is executive coaching and empowerment, uh, particularly I work with women, so I will work with men and women and probably anybody. But because I have a niche, I wouldn't want to work with, let's say, a family situation or with teenagers or children, because I think
Mm.
that's a specific niche and it does require additional training. So it's those types of things. I think I would be able to assess, am I the right fit for you, or am I equipped to do so? And if not, if it's not part of my niche, or if it's not anywhere near where I think, I should be going into that arena, I'll probably refer them to a colleague.
Hmm. And what's the difference between a coach and a therapist?
Coaches are people who look at the present moment, and they are not medically qualified, by the way, as
Mm.
opposed to therapists. So they're not diagnosing, giving medication or prescriptions or anything like that. And they are partnering up with their client. So it's really about helping the client with their current and present challenge. But it's more than that, it's working with them to help them overcome any kind of obstacle or block, because generally clients feel stuck about something and the answers are within them. So it's really about helping them or guiding them to find the answer. We co-create and partner up in that sense, as opposed to a therapist who would probably be medically trained and
Hmm.
do assessments, and they tend to look at the past before they look at the present and then the future to help with a particular problem.
Hmm.
So yeah, those are probably some of the general differences.
I get to talk to a lot of great coaches like yourself and therapists. And what I've come with is that, therapists look back, coaches look forward.
True, true. Coaches are not going to look back. That's not
Right.
something we should be doing. We're trying to help people with their current problem, and we're trying to get them to a specific goal. So it can be very sort of project based or very sort of small, or you can make a big project. But yes, we're trying to get them from point A to B and helping them find the answers within themselves. I think therapists have a much broader job and a bigger assessment to make, which is why
Hmm.
they look back before they help the individual look forward. And probably some of the challenges they have are a little more deep seated than what
Right.
coaches would be looking at.
Right.
So,
Right.
all due respect to the therapists, which I've
Certainly.
also used.
Certainly. Similar to managers and leaders, perhaps.
Exactly,
Perhaps we
exactly.
could draw a comparison there. You talk
Yeah.
about helping people find their true north.
Yes.
What's
Yes.
that mean?
So that's really a metaphor, and it's a metaphor for finding your authentic self. And what do I mean by that? And there's a couple of layers in there. So when one understands what it is that drives their daily decision making, what actually makes them feel happy, fulfilled, or just great about what they're doing versus why do I feel uncomfortable when I do something, or that gut feeling that just is like something doesn't feel right. And so when you go through life like that without knowing what it is that's giving you direction, it can either make life really difficult and sometimes we suffer, or it can really make it flow well.
Hmm.
So finding true north is about understanding yourself and knowing what your core values are. So I see the core values as a compass, and those are the things that drive us to make the decisions we make. And that ends up leading us to being more authentic, which leads us to more flow and be happier in our lives. And it's that compass that gets you to your true north, which is wherever it is you need to be in life. And
Hmm.
sometimes you might know what you think or where you want to be. And other times it's just when the flow is right and you're moving and you're happy in that moment, that's really where you need to be.
Hmm.
And that's your true north.
Are you into boating or astrology? Why true north?
Um, I like astrology,
I say.
and I love sort of the stars and looking at the moon, and just it inspires me.
Hmm.
So that analogy just is more inspiring. It's the light, something to follow.
And have you come into some people, when I talk to small businesses, I had
Mm,
a small business for a while and a managed service provider tech in the tech industry. And the three big lessons I learned, I'm not
yeah,
smart enough to give advice, but the three lessons I learned are one, join a peer group because now you're in with peers and it turned my business completely around. Two is adopt a business operating system. There are plenty of those on how to set meetings, goals, etc. And then third is to hire a coach. And a lot of owners, uh, leaders, they stumble on this because now they've got to kind of go out of themselves. I mean, how do people break free of wow, why do I need a coach? Well, can't I
stigma.
just learn from my peers? And why is a coach so essential?
Sure. I think, yeah, it's just like how when people need to go to a therapist, right? They're like, why do I need help?
Mm.
And that's the first thing, is recognizing when, and I can use myself as an example. As you know, I've done many moves, physically, country wise, career wise, etc. And every time I did that, I relied on something that I knew that worked for me, until I got to a point in my life, whatever my goal was, and I thought, huh, I feel a little stuck and
Mm.
something is not working. And whether it takes you a long time or a short time, you realize that the people around you, or whatever it is that you're doing, isn't giving you what you need. You're not
Hmm.
getting where you need to go, nor is it fast enough. And once you recognize that, then you recognize, well, I guess I'm going to need a little bit of help.
Hmm.
So, what kind of help do I need? And that's when I recognized for myself that a coach would work. And I thought, well, if I want to get to where I want to go, and if I can't do this myself, then the next best thing is to find the right person who can.
Hmm.
And if I looked at it as me solving a problem, and that's a service, albeit from an individual, then it was an easier way to deal with it, rather than saying, I don't know how to do this, but I'm helping myself by taking the services of a coach. And that was the best way to look at it, or to view anything in life. If it's a challenge, how do I either fill the gap, overcome it, or find the right people to help me do it?
Hmm. So now you're talking to somebody and they say, I just need help. What is the first thing? What's kind of your discovery about? How do you make the
Mm,
introduction? How do you actually open up to them? And you're really
yeah,
interviewing each other, right? Because they might not like
awesome.
you might not like them. So what is that process like?
Yeah. So, as most coaches do, it's what we call a discovery call. And it literally means that it's for us to discover about each other. I would discover what's the client's particular challenge, because obviously
Hmm.
they're sitting in front of me for a reason. To get someone to actually have that conversation, like you said, they have to get over
Hmm.
the challenge of, I need help,
Right.
or I need this service. So if they're sitting in front of you, at least they've recognized that they need some kind of help. Now, then for them to discover who I am, what's my approach. I mean, you get a feel for a person when you speak to them, their energy, but also some people are looking for, well, what are your qualifications? Or does your approach resonate with me, or are we speaking the same language? There'll be that sort of first impression that obviously matters. There'll be the qualification that matters, or just simply something that resonates with them because of my own experience. And so that discovery call is really important, because this is about people having a good fit in terms of connecting and communicating. Otherwise, the relationship wouldn't work very well. Same with a therapist. You have to feel like they understand you, and you have to build some trust before you can have that sort of confidential relationship. So that discovery call is very important at that first
Hmm.
stage.
Hmm. Verushka, has there been anything in recent history? I know you're just in 2 weeks in Italy, but is there anything in the last month or so that you've changed your mind on?
Changed my mind on. Let's see.
Doesn't have to be anything large, anything.
I think it's not just in the 2 weeks, but I see it more now through the little things and the big things. There are times where I'll use a simple example. If I'm supposed to catch a train at 9:30 a.m. and I started to walk towards it and I got distracted, I stopped for coffee at the coffee bar in Italy. And then I realized, oh no, I'm running out of time. I've got to run for this train. There used to be a time where I was like, okay, I'm doing the calculation. There's not enough time. I'm not going to make it. Or I can honestly believe that I'm going to make it, or I'm going to hope that this thing is delayed by 5 minutes and I'm going to run for it and I am going to make it. And you know what? I made it.
Hmm.
And I've realized this and I've been testing it on little things quite often now, where I've realized that previously I would have just stopped and said, oh, but based on the calculation, this doesn't make sense. But actually, if you just go for it and really truly believe, sometimes you'll be very surprised. So
Wow.
I've changed my mind on on just going on the data and the facts only,
Huh.
and trusting the intuition even more with the little things that seems like it wouldn't happen.
And let's be honest, Rushka, it's Italy, so the trains are going to be late. So,
Well, most of the time we're okay, but I got lucky that time.
oh, the Italians. Oh my
But
goodness.
gotta
Yeah.
love them. Gotta
Love
love
them.
them.
Love them. Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's just I always tell this story. My cousins, this is I was 10, 12, and southern Italy, and my cousins, uh, 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 Tony and Frank, what are the odds, right? Antonio and Franco. But anyway, they used to work for the town and they did some kind of cleaning or something. And it was Monday and they weren't working. So I said, why aren't you working today? And they said, well, it's raining today. We can't work when it rains. I said, okay. So we played
Mm,
cards and drank wine and chased girls,
mhm.
whatever. So Tuesday, same thing. It rained. They didn't work. Wednesday is a beautiful day. And I said, why aren't you working today? And they said, you never start the week on a Wednesday.
I thought you were going to say it's too beautiful for the weather,
No,
so you can't be
it's
working.
Wednesday. You never start.
Right.
I mean, this is. I love it, but it's just very, very
So
different.
Italian.
As I talk to you, I'm trying to understand how you approach like that example that you gave right there
Mm,
about trying to hit the train on time.
mm,
Art versus science. You're a lawyer, you're
mm,
an executive coach, but you still love salsa dancing and movement. So when you have a problem like that, what percentage? I'm going to say there's a little more science and art, but your gut and art still play a major role.
mm. You mean when you ask what's the difference between or which one works better, art or science?
When you make a decision, do you use more art or science?
Um, that's a really interesting question, and I know nothing can really be 50-50.
Of course.
But I think that based on my personal experience and my legal training, and for a large part of my life where the data, the facts, and everything just, I relied on that so much and the theory and the academics, and that's just the foundation.
Hmm.
What I've learned in the last few years is how to use the intuition to back that up. So the intuition, it'll be very rare that I will just do something without having weighed up the pros and the cons and say, "Oh, I just purely relied on my intuition." I have done that
Hmm.
in the past, but I think it's just so ingrained in me, and it's a personality type that it works well for me. So I feel more secure to be able to rely on the intuition when I do, because I feel like I know enough or I have enough information or informed choice to be able to do that. And that's for my own life. When it comes to the coaching, I think a large part of it, because having practiced and certified, etc., I've got all the information, or what I call the academics behind it. And then when you're in front of a person, and because of my empathetic side and my sort of experience with people, the intuition kicks in whether you realize it or not. It's
Hmm.
informing everything that's on that foundation to be able to ask that right question, not having thought about it or prepared beforehand, because you really have to listen to what the person is saying. And when you block everything else out and you're actively listening, the questions just sort of come out, whether it's the foundational academics behind it and the intuition. I think it's a bit of both.
Yeah, I think we all do that.
Mm.
Um, just to varying degrees.
Yeah.
I'm a golfer, for example. So I'm 150 yards out, and there's a slight wind, and I've got a good lie. The pin's in the
Mm.
back. I get all these
Mm.
factors, and they say, it says 8 iron. But then I said,
Mm.
but you know what? I'm not getting there with this 8 iron. I got to go with the 7. So I kind
Yeah.
of let my gut over. I get the facts, and this is
Yeah.
golf. It's very different from making serious decisions, although some would
Yeah.
argue that's very serious decision. Uh,
Yes.
yeah, but I do kind of let my gut check in, and I think you're
Yeah.
saying something similar.
Exactly. That's exactly
Mhm.
what I'm saying. And I get
Mhm.
your golf analogy because it's the difference between winning and losing, right?
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah, getting closer to that pin and, making a birdie versus a par or a bogey. Absolutely. So I mentioned my tech business. I started in the 90s and Varuschka, I was working way too hard and I was putting my health in the back seat, 14, 16-hour days. I'm sure
Mhm.
you're no stranger to that. And
Yeah.
next thing I know, I'm in front of the doctor and she tells me that I'm at 340 pounds. I had gained all this terrible amount of weight. And she says to me, if you don't lose this weight, you're not going to see your daughter graduate. So it
Mm.
scared the life out of me. I'm driving home, very upset with myself. I can abuse myself all I want, but I have this family now, and my priorities need to change. And so I spent the next 6, 7 months, lost about 120 pounds, kept it off. You can't look at it as a finishing line with losing weight. These are lifelong changes. Nothing could be
Yes.
temporary there. So when I tell people this story, they always, what's your secret? What'd you do? How'd you lose weight? I say, there's no secret. Discipline. That's how I have motivation, willpower, focus. How does discipline play a role in your life, Rushka?
Yeah. So, having mentioned the type of personality that I have with all of that training, for me, I need to stay organized and I need to have a very organized environment because that helps my mind stay organized because I do a lot of thinking and a lot of planning. So, one of the things I do regularly is my to do list the evening before for the next day. It
Wow.
really shapes my thinking, my day, and how productive I feel. And it's about making sure that I practice priorities and being more effective rather than just being busy.
Hmm.
And that's really important to me. But the other thing that's really important and a discipline, and we spoke about this earlier, is movement. I need
Hmm.
to make sure I am moving every day, whether I'm doing my 10 to 12,000 steps, or I've been practicing yoga for the last 15 years, and I find that that helps me from the inside out. So, yoga is really important to me, and I feel it when I don't do it. And so, yeah, every day requires some form of movement, but also just having those priorities so that my day feels worthwhile and effective to me or productive to me.
And as a child there in South Africa, was discipline exemplified by your parents? Was it instilled? Was it talked about?
You know, not really talked about as such, but I think I just observed my parents.
Hmm.
And again, it's my personality because I find that if I don't create something that works for me, I just end up annoying myself.
Hmm.
And that's how I create a new habit. It's like, okay, now I'm just annoyed. This is not working for me. So I'm not going to do this way. I'm going to try it that way. And when I figured out how to manage myself, having looked at, and my parents are also pretty organized, it made sense. And so I just took it to my level and my way of doing things. But
Hmm.
my parents were very good with that. They weren't, strict or disciplinarians, but they kept us on track.
Hmm. What motivates you now, Rushka?
What motivates me now is being able to have freedom of time and location
Hmm.
and enjoying that, like I said, by being effective and impactful and not being busy for the sake of being busy.
Hmm.
That's really important to me. And
Wow.
so helping people and doing that as part of my day is just, you know, even better because then
Hmm.
I'm serving my purpose, but I'm doing it in the way in which that I want to do it.
Freedom. That's everything to you, isn't it?
Yeah. Do you know, there's that, I don't know if it's a study or a saying, but there are certain basic human needs, whether it's food or freedom or safety,
Hmm.
etc. Different people have different um, basic needs that they focus on. And I think when you figure out what yours is, then it makes it a lot easier to manage your own expectations and how you want to live your life.
Did you feel unfree in those corporate environments? I don't know
It
if that's
was
a word, unfree, but
no, I know where you're going with it.
yeah, yeah. I don't know how else to say it.
Because I wasn't it yeah, it's not a cage. Um,
Right.
no, No, actually, I didn't, because at the time when I was doing those roles and being in those jobs, I actually had a lot of freedom, a very hybrid sense of working. So I didn't have to be at the office all the time. I didn't have to keep, 9 to 5. I liked to work in the evenings. So if my mornings were slow, I
Hmm.
was more productive in the evenings. I loved going to clients for meetings, etc. So, and I had even more freedom, I think, when I came over to the UK, because it was about being in different countries, traveling, seeing a lot of people. So it was great. I did get some of that in one or two environments that did feel a little restrictive at times, but generally, no, I did not.
Hmm.
I think, yeah, the only thing I felt, like I said before, was that sense of there was something just not quite right. That sense of fulfillment was not there anymore.
Want to show your love for discipline, inspiration, and the Joey Pinz podcast? Now's your chance. Introducing the brand new Joey Pinz merch store, where style meets discipline. Choose from premium apparel, cozy hoodies, stylish hats, durable bags, and your new favorite coffee mug, all featuring the iconic Joey Pinz logo. Perfect for podcast fans, discipline enthusiasts, or as unique gifts for friends and family. Every purchase supports the Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations podcast, helping us continue to inspire greatness and promote positive change. Visit joeypins.com/store today and wear your discipline proudly. Joey Pinz merch. Wear it, share it, and live it. You want to be a global citizen. You want to be able to move around and be free in that area. That's what. So, given that
Hmm.
motivation of freedom, how do you measure success?
Hmm. I think success is something very personal to an individual based on what they are facing. I have come to learn in recent times that it's not one thing. I
Hmm.
used to think it was the job. It was how far you got, the title. Or sometimes it's about the money you make, the things you have, or in my case, how many countries I've traveled to. And that's probably my version of success when it comes to the category of travel. But my version of success when it comes to self development is learning how to be a better version of myself.
Hmm.
And that also means doing the internal work and going through the process of facing things like, what's my limiting belief? How do I overcome that? And how long is it going to take me before I do that? And so, yeah, success can be a different definition in different circumstances. But for me, it's a lot to do with just being a better version of who I am.
Hmm. That's a wonderful sentiment. I was excited when we set this up. It's so cool to talk to you, learning about you, and talking to you. Um, it seems to me that you could, Varushka, go into another corporate gig and make a lot of money and but you'd rather have the freedom, you'd rather work with coaches, you'd rather coach these people and help them. You saw people that needed help, you need to help yourself, and
Mhm.
now you're turning it around and doing that exactly what you saw that need is. I think that's actually it's a remarkable and wonderful.
Thank you.
I really appreciate your time today. Anybody watching or listening, how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so I am on LinkedIn, and I'm currently working on my website, which the new and improved one will be available soon, but
I
it's
saw it
Varushka
today.
Nagesar.
It
Did
was up
you?
today. Yeah, it was up.
Okay, good, good, good. You got access to it. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I
some final
yeah,
tweaks,
it looked
but
good.
it's there. Yeah. So you can
And it's
contact me through my
spelled. Tell us how it's spelled.
VARUSCHKANAGESAR.com.
That's it. And we'll make sure to put it in the show notes. And I really appreciate your time. Next time I'm in the
Likewise.
great city of London, perhaps we'll get together and have a cup of tea.
Yes, please. Or even a coffee.
I never had a cup of my whole life.
Oh, wow. Then tea it is.
Yes, I've never had
In
a cup.
Italian, not to have a coffee?
I know, I know. I hear it endlessly. Yes, yes.
I'm kidding. It's fine.
You be well, Varuschka. Thank you.
And you. Thank you so much. Great talking to you. Take care.
Thank you for listening and or viewing Joey Pin's Discipline Conversations. Please share this episode with one or two of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypins.com. There you'll find lots of resources and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information, the video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pin's Discipline Conversations.